Hello, everyone. This is Dude Dreamer. So, yes, today me and Jedi Bender are back for another death battle prediction. And this time, we're going to predict who's going to win between Aang from Avatar The Last Airbender versus Edward Elric from Full Metal Alchemist. And a lot of people are expecting this battle to happen. Some people wanted Aang to face someone else or Edward to face someone else. But after doing a little bit of research on both of them, I think this is actually a pretty good fight to see. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. And before we go forward, I'm going to introduce you to Jedi Bender. What's up, Jedi?
Hello, everyone. Nothing much duo. Happy to be here, back doing predictions. I agree with you 100%. I know this isn't a matchup a lot of people were expecting, but after you go over it in your head, it makes perfect sense. This is another great unorthodox matchup, and this one is going to be probably the most closest unorthodox matchup we've ever seen this season.
Yes. So we're gonna see what happens. And I did ask a couple of my fans on my YouTube community on who they think is gonna win. Oh boy, a lot of people want to see Aang win this. And I was actually at first going by that, and even you and I were talking about before doing this. Looks like Edward's not gonna win this. But then when I looked up more on Edward, I was like, this is actually closer than a lot of people would think. Because a lot of people think that this is a stomp for Aang. Like, what do you think?
I was the same way, yeah. As somebody who has seen a little bit of Full Metal Alchemist back in the day, I never got to finish all of it or even get to Brotherhood. I did see a lot of people saying that this was totally in Aang's favor, which I have to respectfully disagree. It's not. It's close. It's really close. There is an argument to be made that either one could potentially win. And I think that that's what some people are missing. Like you all, yes, I'm an Avatar fan, but as most of you will know, I'm a bigger Legend of Korra fan. So despite my personal bias towards Aang in this, I really think that Edward Elric is grossly being underestimated in this fight.
I think so too. I mean, I think people. I don't know if it's because people love Avatar more than Full Metal Alchemist. I mean, I've seen people who say I'm a huge fan of Full Metal Alchemist, but they believe that Aang's gonna win. But it really determines on how Death Battle plays this. So we're gonna.
This is true.
Yeah, so we're gonna like kind of predict how Death Battle is gonna handle this. So let's talk about that first. So right away, I know for a fact that they're not going to be using different universe because there's not really a different timeline, different universe for either franchise of Avatar or Full Metal Alchemist. It's very linear, so that's kind of going to be easy for Death Battle to handle this. It's going to be very easy to handle this.
I completely agree. I think that using linear timelines for both of these characters pays off a lot in the long run, especially considering, say, in Ben 10 versus Green Lantern, there were different timelines, so that made it very hard to really go over them at their maximum potential. Here, though, that's not a problem because we know where they're beginning. We know where they begin, we know where they end, and I think that right away, that's going to really, really, really be a huge contributing factor in the opening analysis and potentially in the end analysis because they don't have to go over specific timelines of these characters because, like you said, there are no other timelines. This is their main timeline.
Yep. So yeah, and right away, I believe they're gonna. Of course, they're gonna use them at their prime, and some people were saying like, "Oh, we're gonna use them at the end of the series or something like that." Well, at the end of the series, from what I've heard with Full Metal Alchemist, I don't know if it's still going on, but from what I've heard, Edward doesn't have his alchemy powers anymore. He still has the knowledge, but he can't cannot transmute matter into anything he wish anymore. Whereas Aang, did he retire or he's just old or something like
that? Basically, if we're going by the end of book 3 and currently into the graphic novels, which I have read, He's still going. There hasn't been a point to where he's completely mastered the two remaining elements. Aang's full maximum, and I guess you could say his ending, is in Legend of Korra when he passes on and reincarnates into Korra. So that's where his end is. As far as I know, it really hasn't been properly explored in the books, and we were given very little in Legend of Korra when we did see him as an adult. But he was still very active around the age of 40. So, I mean, it's possible that maybe when he was, because I do know whenever he passed on, that's when he wasn't active because he was very ill and he passed away. So, right. Yeah.
Okay, so we're probably gonna see like him, like in terms of sprites, probably use like the younger version, but still use like say abilities he had in his 40s.
Probably. Yeah.
And I can say the same thing about Edward, where they're probably gonna use sprites like when he was a teenager and using his metal arm and his metal leg and everything like that. So I think that's how Death Row is gonna handle it. In terms of research, is like I said, it's a linear timeline. Nothing's different. Nothing, there's no other versions of these characters. Even their manga and the graphic novels still continue on to
Yes.
So I think we're gonna go with that. I think that's what Death Battle is gonna go with. So now let's talk about their abilities. I'm not an Aang expert. I'm gonna let you guys know because I have never seen an episode of Avatar. But as you guys know, Jedi has watched Avatar and also Korra. But we're gonna be talking about Avatar. I know a little bit of Full Metal Alchemist because have watched some episodes of it, not all of them, but I have read on some stuff of things he has done with his powers, and that's why I'm gonna think that it's a close one, guys. It's not a stomp, it's a close battle. But anyway, let's talk about Aang a little bit. As we already know, Aang can bend the elements. The question is, what elements can he bend? I want to leave that up to you, Jedi.
Oh, thank you. As far as Aang's bending, yes. As the Avatar, he is the balance between non-benders and benders alike. Naturally, when the Avatar is reincarnated, they start off as a different tribe. For example, in the Avatar / Legend of Korra world, there are 4 tribes. There's the Fire Nation, there's the Water Tribe, there's the Air Nomads, and then finally there's the Earth Kingdom Empire. So each incarnation of the Avatar can bend an element that not only they are incarnated into that clans, but also there's certain personality traits they get from being in that clan itself. So naturally, with Aang being an air nomad, he can naturally and masterfully bend air. It was the one element he did master at the age of 12 before he found out he was the Avatar. And when he awoken, his airbending was still very on point. Naturally, with air, he can create spheres of air that give him oxygen whenever he's underwater, or poison gas. He uses air for speed. That's his most notable trait, because Aang is not necessarily a fighter. He's more of a light fighter. He likes to react instead of take the offensive. So he can use air to increase his speed, and to even further his speed, he created a technique in the Air Nomads that would later go on to still be used long after he had passed on. And this technique was called the air scooter. The air scooter is basically this little ball of air that Aang can ride like a unicycle that makes him go faster. So pretty much
kind of reminded me of the flying Nimbus in a way.
It's pretty much like
when you're describing it, kind of like the flying Nimbus, Goku's flying.
Yes, Nimbus. Yes, of course. And then we would actually see Aang make a bigger version of the air scooter in Legend of Korra, and the bigger one was able to catch up to carriages. So that's got to be like maybe 70, 80 miles per hour, depending on the carriage and the horses going. So yeah, and then, of course, he can do many other things with air. He can glide and pretty much shoot air out. And he can even create a tornado. So all of these things are his standard form of bending. This is his go-to that he chooses to have in battle.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And does he know any other elemental abilities that
yes.
people are doing? Because a lot of people are saying like, oh, he knows this elemental. But I remember you were talking about that there's some he has mastered and some he hasn't mastered.
Yes, the next one that he mastered, kind of, it was never fully stated, but I think there is clear evidence to suggest that he did become a master of, was water bending. And water bending does exactly what you think it does. You can you can summon water and use it as an attack or defense. You can create water rips, as they're called, to kind of tangle an opponent up. And of course, this is kind of famous, because of ice being connected to water, Aang can freeze or create icebergs to protect him and his friends from any ongoing types of danger. There is one ability with water bending that he didn't learn how to do, which was blood bending, which basically is an advanced version of water that allows the user to manipulate the very blood in your body, kind of twisting your whole body like a ragged puppet. So it's very deadly, but Aang does not know that. The other elements, the elements he hasn't mastered. One of them is Earth. He did not. Now, a lot of people will say, well, what are you talking about? He had to have mastered it. Well, if you go back, by the end of book 3, Toph specifically told him that he hadn't finished his earthbending training. He wasn't even close to being a master on her caliber. He does know the basics of earthbending, but this is what kind of is a disadvantage for him. Because he is an air nomad, he believes in peace and tranquility, and that's his personality. He's very chipper, he's very, optimistic, but whenever you go into other bendings, like earth and fire, you have to have a different kind of personality trait. Like, you can't just use the same mentality that you always use. So with earth, he can, of course, manipulate boulders, he can shoot them out, he can even create a signature move that Toph taught him, which is called rock armor, where he can encase his whole body in rock covered in the earth. And it's very defensive and protects him from a lot, although it loses a little bit of mobility when he does this. And then finally, the last thing that he learned from Toph was the seismic sense, where he can sense everything in his environment, which is kind of like a sonar. Your only mate asked me this, and I can only speculate on it, but he wanted to know, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know, if Aang knows the seismic sense, does that mean he can see things that are connected to the Earth? I can't answer that question definitively because it's never been fully documented, but I would have to assume it's possible. But that's, even if he can't, the fact that he knows it all, that is still a huge testament to his earthbending. So yes, that's one of the elements he didn't master, and it's kind of not his go-to. He prefers to use it as kind of a substitute. And then the last one is fire.
Right.
Firebending, once again, is pretty self-explanatory. Although firebending is very different from the other 3 elements, because you have to use your own chi in order to get the fire out, and firebending requires a lot of heated passion, so to speak. Aang can create fire balloons, he can create giant flames, and he can do many other things with firebending, but he's just like his earthbending. By the end of the series and into the books, he never became a master of firebending. In fact, he was just above average. And I'll get into that more later. But the one other thing he did learn when he trained with the last dragons along with Zuko, his firebending at least improved. And Zuko also taught him how to redirect lightning, because that's one of the other things that's the second highest form of a bending, because each bending element has an advanced technique. With air, you can fly unsustainably. With earth, you can manipulate metal and lava. With water, you can blood bend your enemy, and with fire, you can shoot lightning. Yes.
Wow.
I know. Yeah. So Aang doesn't know how to lightning bend, but he does know how to redirect it, thanks to Zuko. So yeah, that's about it. Those are the elements that he knows and has mastered, and the elements he's adept at, but he hasn't fully mastered.
Okay, and how is he in like hand-to-hand combat? Because I know that's gonna that has to has to be in play or something like that. Like, how is he in hand-to-hand combat?
As I said, he's a light fighter. Because of being an air nomad, he doesn't fully believe in violence. He wants to try and solve the situation and talk things out. If there's no other choice, he will defend himself. But if you take away, if it was just a one-on-one with fisticuffs, Aang is severely lacking. He does not know how to properly defend himself with hand-to-hand combat. In fact, that's one of Aang's greatest weaknesses. If you can get past his bending and get up close to him, and pretty much beat him into submission with your hand-to-hand skills, he's pretty much got no answer other than to rely on either his speed or his bending to get him out of that predicament.
Okay. Makes sense. So you can say he's more of a defensive fighter than, like, say, offensive.
Yes, that is a good way of putting it. He does. I mean, he can use offensive tactics, but he mainly prefers to keep his distance and defend himself, because that's the air nomad tradition. Is that you have to you never seek out violence or the offensive. You always kind of defend yourself and wait to tire the enemy out. So that is Aang's main mentality and tactic when it comes to battle combat.
And what can you say about weaknesses, like his weaknesses?
Aside from hand-to-hand combat, Aang's greatest weakness is his constitution. Because being the Avatar, your durability is sometimes inconsistent. One Avatar can be so durable that they can take anything and get right back up, like Avatar Roku, Avatar Korra. But with Aang, since he's not about the offensive, his constitution is very it's below average. It's not that bad, but if you were to take out Aang momentarily, he would be down for the count, regardless if it was temporary or if it was permanent. He does have his tactical awareness. It's a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes he uses the environment to his advantage, and sometimes he doesn't count on an enemy getting the drop on him. Like, for example, when he almost died by Zuko's sister, Azula, who was one of the best firebenders back in the day, and she was able to get a shot at him with her lightning, and it nearly killed him. And that was while he was in the Avatar state. But speaking of that, the only way to permanently kill Aang and therefore stop the Avatar cycle from going is if you kill the Avatar while they're in the Avatar state. So those are some of Aang's greatest weaknesses.
Okay, cool.